Friday, everybody, on the Clay and Buck Show. My, oh my, do we have a lot to talk to you about. Thanks for joining us from all across the land, and actually around the world, too, for our streaming listeners. The iHeart app, fantastic. So, yesterday was quite a day. We got a little bit of after-action reporting and analysis on what the heck just happened. We have a special counsel against a Democrat president, the first time since Bill Clinton's special prosecutor situation. We'll break that down for you. There's a lot that's in the air here. Depending on who you listen to, this right now, Clay, is either a apparatus plot to remove Biden, or there are some who are saying that now, because the precedent has been established of how fair-minded and even-handed this DOJ is, that Trump is more likely to be prosecuted. I don't subscribe to that, but we have some audio of somebody saying it. And then there's also the possibility, we know that they held this before the election, and that's clear, but maybe there's the possibility here that the Democrat machine has been wrong-footed, has been caught a little off guard by this in some way. I had people asking me last night, Clay, whether I thought it was plausible that people would find these documents and not just take them to a shredder or a burn bag. Remember, these are folks who would have access to those processes that, millions of pages of documents are being destroyed, burned, bagged, shredded every day. Can we start? I want to go through the different theories as to what happened because it's fascinating. I've also got a poll up. Who's going to replace Biden, by the way, overwhelmingly right now. If Biden is replaced, is the poll. Overwhelmingly Gavin Newsom, not Kamala Harris. I disagree with my beloved poll folks on this one. I think it will be Kamala Harris. But Clay, why didn't the documents just get made to disappear?
That's what I don't understand. None of this story makes sense at all to me. And I keep going back to the timeline on this for why it doesn't make sense to me. And I know we talked about this a little bit yesterday, Buck, but just kind of follow me down this path because I've still got the dates in front of me that were given to us by Merrick Garland. So admittedly, we are presuming that this timeline is accurate. They made the discovery on November 2nd, 6 days before the midterm. They did not, according to the Merrick Garland timeline, find additional documents, classified documents, in the garage beside the Corvette until December 20th at Joe Biden's Wilmington, Delaware home. They then supposedly found another classified document on January the 11th. At a minimum, Buck, they knew that when this story broke, meaning when it went out public this week, a few days ago initially, they knew that there were additional classified documents they had found at the garage. What I can't get my head wrapped around is why did they have two different stories come out about the classified documents? If you already knew that there were multiple places you had found classified documents, and if the story had held until January, right, multi-months this had held, why would you not have one story come out and say, we found documents initially on November 2nd. We then undertook a massive review of every aspect of Joe Biden's personal papers to try to ensure there were no more. And as a part of that search, we then found more documents classified inside of his Wilmington, Delaware home. I don't understand. If you were kind of sketching this out, it makes Joe Biden look far more incompetent. It also, Buck, raises the question that I think is paramount here. Were they looking for months? If so, why did it take months to go find this document on November 2nd and then find more documents on December 20th? Buck, if I came to you and you suddenly had said, and I think it still raises the question, why not just destroy them, which is an interesting question in and of itself.
If you find classified documents in your home in Tennessee, Clay, I should be your first call, just to be clear.
Yes, 100%. But if we did, so my answer on that, by the way, is there was a lawyer who found those that was terrified that somebody would find out that he found them, and the last thing he wanted to do was end up in the crosshairs himself. So it was self-preservation of himself that led him to turn them over. But still, the bigger question is, how could you go until December 20th? If you undertook an exhaustive review of a search of your home, a search of my home, and look through every paper, there's no way it would take 6 weeks to uncover these on December 20th, right? The timeline
Clay,
doesn't make sense to me, is what I'm getting at.
The slow roll, here's a theory. There are a lot of theories right now that are out there about a whole range.
Do you understand what I'm saying, though? The timeline just doesn't make sense to me at all.
Absolutely,
that we've been provided.
But let's keep this, I think, in mind, that the apparatus here was very cognizant. Remember, this came out right before the election. And
I understand why they hit it. I understand why they hit that. Yes.
The people who say it wouldn't have mattered were also the same people, every single one of them, who believe that Donald Trump was rendered, unable to even be in office because of the Billy Bush tape from some bus from, 15 years ago. Okay, so trust me, the October Surprise Brigade doesn't just march in one direction. It's ridiculous. They would have known that this would have been a huge problem before the election, and they would have sat on it clearly. And they would even, I'm sure,
and that's what they did. That
it.
doesn't surprise me. Yeah. It definitely would have influenced the election, which is why they said it.
Right. But so let's keep in mind, you're talking about the delay. How could it take so long? There was a very important special election that was being held in Georgia for a pivotal Senate seat. I'm sorry, not special election, runoff election.
Yeah,
that
December
was being
6th.
held in Georgia. The runoff with Herschel Walker and Raphael Warnock. So you could see how the same logic of the let's not let this get out in the beginning in November would apply until at least some weeks later. So I don't know if that was influencing the timeline, but to me, that certainly is a possibility. Do you see that as being...
Yeah, I understand that on some level. I guess my question is, November 2nd, I understand why they didn't want it to go public. And the fact that they didn't go public is kind of prima facie, as you would say if you were a lawyer, evidence that you acknowledge it would have been negative towards you. Buck, there's a legal canon that exists out there that if evidence is destroyed and doesn't exist anymore, there's a presumption that it probably benefited the other side, right? Like if you are saying, hey, we just have like a 6-month gap on your email logs when everybody was conducting an investigation into whether there's asbestos in the building. It's really suspicious that we have everything but a discussion about asbestos in the building, right? You could surmise that there might have been something that was covered up there. My point on this, so I'm not surprised about the timing that they would not want this to go public before the election. But November 2nd, under their timeline that Merrick Garland has now provided us, it doesn't add up to me that if you found these classified documents on November 2nd, that it would then take you 6 weeks until suddenly you find more documents in the garage on December 20th. Like, were they conducting an investigation at all? Did they wait? Maybe you're right. They didn't want to look anymore at all until after. Like, what happened there?
We know, Clay, that they play games with the timeline.
Yeah.
Because
it doesn't
they had
add
a
up.
back and forth. They had a back and forth with Trump and the Mar-a-Lago documents 4 months back and forth. And then they send the FBI in. They act like there was a false urgency at the heart of that Merrick Garland ordered raid on Mar-a-Lago. Back and forth for months and months. If it was the nuclear, this is what I said initially. We were talking about this here on the show. If it really were the nuclear codes that were at risk, or, nuclear information, whatever, not the codes. Right. Those change all the time, I'm sure. But if it were the supremely sensitive information that Washington Post story was making us believe, they should have gone after it right away. I mean, they waited for months and months and months.
Or if they thought Trump was selling the documents, which is what the fever dreams, like if there was actual threat.
Yes. They said at the time, doesn't actually make sense based on the timeline they had there. Look, government, having worked in government, has an unbelievable capacity for bureaucratic sloth, inefficiency, and delay. I mean, never underestimate how much the government can slow roll anything, okay? So, we're still looking at the JFK files being declassified from the 60s, right? So there's a lot of ability to do that. So I guess what I'm wondering about here, though, is we don't know. Motive then sets in place so much else, right? We understand more of these pieces if we know the motive. I still think, and by the way, that poll I put out yesterday, because I'm always so curious what the perception is among our people, broadly speaking, 90% of poll respondents, and there were thousands and thousands of them, believe that this is a move to get rid of Joe Biden. But are we sure that it's a move to get rid of Joe Biden? I'm not sure that it is. I think it's very possible, but I think that we may be underestimating. This is an administration of not very smart, not very serious people. And Joe Biden is at the top of that. I'm starting to get the sense, I just will put this out there, that this is a cluster and that a lot of people and pieces are moving around going, oh my gosh, what did he do? And that it's less the Machiavellian, we're playing. Don't assume Democrats are playing 4D chess on this one. I mean, Clay, documents next to the Corvette. Look what Biden said yesterday. I
agree with you. I think it's incompetence.
Yeah. I think that's really, I think there is a panic in the heart of the system right now. And so this is my theory for all of you. And by the way, let me know what you think. Light up those lines. Clay and I want to hear from you. 800-282-2882. My theory in this right now is that we don't really know what the motive, if there is a motive, of this whole imbroglio is. This is a fun word.
Well used, correctly used. Love that word.
You,
yes.
And I think that's because they're not sure yet. I think that they stepped in a bear trap and now they're trying to figure out what the next steps are going to be. I don't think that to our point yesterday, do I think Ron Klain is sitting around, tapping his fingers together going, ha, now I get to have Kamala as the president. No, I do not. So that's where I am right now. I'm open to alternative points of view, though.
One other thing that I don't think has been contemplated or discussed very much, Biden has his own private lawyers. There may be a miscommunication and a disconnect because those criminal lawyers want to keep all this information close to the vest. And there is a difference between government lawyers and your own personal lawyers. Biden's trying to protect himself. And that might mean that there have been some people who should know more about this walled off that are not very well informed. I think you have to consider how much information did, for instance, the White House have on this situation. There's lots of dumb takes out there surrounding Joe Biden keeping classified documents by his Corvette in a garage. But it's not going to surprise you that many of the dumbest takes continue to come from MSNBC because everyone on MSNBC sold to their audience the fact that Donald Trump's classified documents in Mar-a-Lago were a direct threat to our nation's democracy and guaranteed that he should be charged with a crime, Trump, and also not able to run for president in 2024. Well, now that the garage incident has occurred, they are scrambling, and I don't know what Mika on Morning Joe, I don't know what Mika's background is. Does she have a law degree or anything else?
She's the daughter of Zbigniew Brzezinski. That's her background.
Right, but does she have any, legal training at all? Is there any,
Nah.
Okay.
I think she was a morning show host talking about the best summer salads.
What is the best summer salad, by the way? Makes me want to be in the
Feta
summer.
and
Good
watermelon make any summer salad amazing if you're really asking me.
You know what? Tomatoes may be there as well, but your feta and watermelon idea is a good one. Much better than Mika's idea that this Joe Biden classified document scandal actually makes it more likely that Trump is going to be charged. It's so dumb. It makes my head hurt. Listen.
Classified documents in private hands is something Republicans downplayed constantly until the shoe was placed on the other foot. And unfortunately for them, the Trump shoe that dropped was much bigger and entirely different in the key issue of willful intent to obstruct. That's what it's going to come down to. Many Republicans just aren't smart enough to figure that out, and they can't figure out that this week's developments actually make it more likely the DOJ moves on Trump because of the political space it has been given by the Penn Biden Center and the garage where Joe Biden parks his Corvette. Yes, it was sloppy. In the end, what is most important here is intent.
Okay, you can focus on intent, Buck. To say that it's more likely that Donald Trump is going to be charged after Joe Biden's own classified documents scandal is one of the dumbest political opinions I've ever heard on television.
Also, her analysis, which is poor across the board, that Republicans always downplay classified documents. She should Google Hillary Clinton classified documents. Just spend like a couple minutes reading about that. It would be really helpful for her, I think. She might have some idea of what the heck she's talking about for the first time in a long time.
The review was underway when you guys gave a detailed statement about the first set of documents. The review was underway when the president spoke about the first set of documents. You're now saying that you didn't talk about the second set of documents discovered almost a month prior because a review was underway. I don't understand. It doesn't make any sense.
No,
the review was underway the entire time. The only difference was that reporters had information on the first set of documents, and therefore you chose to exclude the second set of documents until reporters got information on the second set of documents.
Well, let me unconfuse you for a second, Phil. Look, we are trying to do this by the book. And I said yesterday this was under review by the Department of Justice. And the process is as such. When the president's lawyers realized that the documents existed, that they were there, they reached out to the archives. They reached out to the Department of Justice. Rightfully so, may I add. That is what you're supposed to do as lawyers. That's what they did. And they have fully been cooperating with the Department of Justice. And again, I said this earlier in answering a question. You heard from the Attorney General. He said shortly after the documents were discovered, that we did outreach. The president's lawyers did outreach to the Department of Justice and archivists.
Nobody's questioning that. That's not what we're asking about. We're asking about.
I'm telling you that there's a process. I just laid out what the process is, and I'm
about
telling you
the
that
public
we
process
were
of-
trying to do this by the book, and it was an ongoing process.
Let me unconfuse you, Karine Jean-Pierre says to a member of the press there, and then proceeds to confuse, I think, a bit more insofar as she's not really dealing with the substance that he raises, which is you guys, meaning the White House, knew more about this than you were telling the press. And now, to the point that we're getting to here, Clay and I have been talking about, when it comes to, was this some kind of a plan, or did they just step on, step on a rake, step on a bear trap here? Did they make a mess of themselves in the media? The answer increasingly to me, Clay, looks like it's really just a cluster for them. This is a mess, and that the White House is in a bit of a spiral right now. There are some pretty interesting theories out there. Representative Hank Johnson, for example, raised this yesterday. Play clip 2.
Alleged classified documents showing up allegedly in the possession of Joseph Biden. There's so much that needs to be investigated, and that's what I call for, is for everything to be investigated. But I'm suspicious of the timing of it. I'm also aware of the fact that things can be planted on people. Places and things can be planted. Things can be planted in places and then discovered conveniently. That may be what has occurred here. I'm not ruling that out, but I'm open in terms of the investigation needs to be investigated.
Okay, Clay, can I just, first off, he uses the word allegedly a lot. No one, when no side denies, those are just the facts. They are classified documents, and they were found. It's not like the Biden team's like, they weren't classified, they weren't found. Everyone agrees. These are facts. This is not alleged. But then, okay, who planted them? And for what purpose? I don't think this is a serious theory, but, we're playing them all out here.
It would be a massive crime. Maybe OJ could find this person just like he's found, been searching for the real killers. This Buck was what I was saying yesterday. You're right. I think this is more incompetence than it is some grand plan. And what I still can't get around is, if let's presume that all this has happened, right? you would want to put out your entire collection of classified documents that you've uncovered as one story. I think what happened here is, again, I still think the time frame is really interesting, and I think the Biden people should have to answer, who's been conducting this search? We still don't know, right? November 2nd, they say some person closing down the office made this discovery. Okay, who made the discovery in the garage at his house? Who made the discovery in the house? How many people even have access to Joe Biden's house right now while he is president of the United States? I would think there would be not that many who were even allowed on the premises, right? I mean, because you don't want somebody planting a bomb in the president's house, right? I mean, it has to be pretty secretive.
Colonel Mustard in the solarium with a candlestick.
So I think what likely has happened is you have a legal team, because I think Joe Biden hired his own private attorneys as soon as they found these classified documents, because there's evidence that he committed a crime. And then I think that legal team tried to shut down everything and did not communicate with the political team. And sometimes that happens, right? You have two dueling spheres of power. The legal team typically doesn't want to say anything because they're trying to protect you from gaining further legal liability. That's what your lawyer's job is. And again, these are private lawyers, not government lawyers. So the private lawyers are going to be telling Joe Biden, hey, say as little as possible. But the political realities are you have to say some things. So I suspect that Joe Biden, who is incompetent, is trying to manage now two dueling spheres of power. His legal representation designed to limit his overall legal liability in a criminal context. Meanwhile, also the political realities. And then you combine that, Buck, with where does Karine Jean-Pierre rank on the list of people that you have seen in public that you would want defending you in public, Buck? Like if we had an official spokesperson for the show, if you and I were not talking for the show, but we had somebody who came on after the show and would answer any questions that might arise, like let's just pretend we had our own press secretary. Karine Jean-Pierre would rank like 4 billion on our list of who was going to speak for the show.
Well, you have to think about the audience, though, because for Democrats, anyone who challenges Karine Jean-Pierre, anyone who presses her on the issue,
racist, sexist,
is a bully,
homophobic,
a racist, homophobic, and a bad person. So there's the, for people that are just objectively listening to what she says, and actually in that sense, just, treating her the way anybody would want to be treated. How good is she at the job? She's not good at the job. But if you're a Democrat watching this, anybody who questions her, you can just shut it down right away. And of course, as a result, she's incredibly effective for the Democrat base, because if you push her, you're a bully, a racist, a bad person. Just push her on the issues. Just push her to actually get more questions. And by the way, this you even see this on the right sometimes. If you have somebody who, if you question a woman too aggressively, even no matter what role she's in, some people say that's sexist and you're bullying. So I think everyone in these roles should be treated absolutely equally when it comes to the kind of pressure and demands of the job that they're given. But yeah, she's obviously not going to be top of the list for who I would want to defend me in a court of law or a court of public opinion.
And I will say, and maybe when we come back, we'll take some calls and also play some of the comedy, some of the late night hosts are even teeing off on Joe Biden. I will say I watched that Karine Jean-Pierre press conference yesterday. She got absolutely filleted because, Buck, we've talked about this before. The media will cover for you as long as you don't make them look dumb.
If they look dumb, they get upset. That's true.
And that's where they are right now, because they're upset about the disclosures of the information.
And just to bring it back to the 51 intelligence, because I think that was such a seminal moment for the media, they're okay with looking dumb to the other side if those are the orders, right? Meaning that they're okay with saying things that are stupid as long as they know, okay, like we're all going to say Joe Biden's not senile, like vote for Joe Biden. Like they'll say whatever. It's when they feel like, oh, I didn't know, and now I look like an idiot. You didn't tell me that we were doing this. That's when the media gets upset about it.
I wanted to point out that late night talk show hosts, comedy, used to be comedy shows, used to take even shots, Republican, Democrat, whoever was in power, they would go after. The Biden regime has become so incompetent of late that even the late night talk show hosts are starting to make fun of Joe Biden. And I thought both of these, let's start with, I believe, Jimmy Fallon making a joke at Joe Biden's expense, and then we'll play Jimmy Kimmel. But let's start with Fallon. Here was Fallon last night.
Another classified document was found in a room that Biden calls his personal library. Oh, please, just say bathroom. The White House said it was just a small number of classified documents. It's like your doctor saying, don't worry, it's just a smidge of herpes.
All right, so that is Jimmy Fallon, now Jimmy Kimmel, both of whom usually are always defending the regime in power. Here they are last night on Jimmy Kimmel's show making fun of Joe Biden as well.
He's super proud of that Corvette, isn't he? You know, I have a Corvette. I don't know. It's like we have a President Burt Reynolds all of a sudden. Which is more dangerous, Joe Biden having classified documents in his garage or Joe Biden having the keys to a Corvette?
So, look, they're starting to mock him, and this could go towards whether or not he becomes a viable candidate in 23. And, Buck, this was the big question that was kind of floating around out there. Is this basically a political hit job ordered on Joe Biden, or is this a sign of the Biden regime's incompetence? I'm really coming down on, the more I look and study this, I think it's just an incompetent, unforced error. I don't think there's some master manipulator here.
And so that then pushes me back toward, I don't believe this is going to stop Joe Biden from running. I don't see it. I know, right? That's not kind of where the momentum is right now with a lot of folks, but I still, because I look at it this way. What do Democrats want more than anything else? Power. Who is most likely for them to win? The incumbent president, who is likely to face, I mean, I don't know how likely, but very, very strong possibility, the same opponent he faced in 2020. So it's a replay of that, but he's an incumbent now instead of a challenger. Or they allow for a total free-for-all primary battle, or they just say, well, it's going to be Kamala because Joe doesn't even finish out the first term, and then she becomes the incumbent president and then runs for re-election as an incumbent. By the way, there's no chance in my mind that Biden finishes. Like, it would be crazy for him to finish out his term and at the very end, you know what I mean? I think you'd have to step down. It
would have
and
to be a major health condition that he has with like a month or two left in his term.
Which means you're looking at Biden as president probably for one more year, and that would be it. And then he would step down and let Kamala take over and run as an incumbent and be president while running. Now, these are all options. These are all possibilities. But to me, I am most concerned about the Democrats getting 4 more years of a presidency if Joe Biden runs for re-election. I'm just going to say it. I know that can sound crazy to people, but it was crazy that he won in 2020.
Oh, I agree with you. I think they're going to run him. I don't think this changes anything. And it's almost, I know you're a tennis player. There's a difference between somebody hitting a great shot and scoring a point on you and an unforced error where you just mishit the ball and it goes into the net.
Right. That's when you start cursing loudly. You know what I mean? You clap for the great shot against you. You curse when you hit it in the bottom of the net like a fool.
This, to me, is an unforced error by the Bidens. I understand there's this desire out there to believe that this level of incompetence is not possible and that there's some manipulator out there pulling the puppet strings and they've decided, oh, Biden's no longer the guy. I don't buy that at all. And if you take it back beyond this, Buck, if in August we had said to Democrats, hey, you're going to pick up 1 Senate seat, you're only going to lose around 10 seats in the House, but Joe Biden's going to have a classified documents scandal, they would have signed up for that in a heartbeat, right? So I still think Biden's standing based on the midterms is infinitely higher than we expected it would be, even with this unforced error.
Got a bunch of lines lit. I just would ask for everybody, we're going to get on here in a second. We love all of you. Thank you so much for listening. Jump right to it. Get right to what you think in here, because we've got lines have been just going crazy. Everybody wants to weigh in on this one. We'll start with Mike in Odessa, Georgia, retired Navy officer. What's up, Mike?
Hey, two items for you. I'll get to them real quick. I had a security clearance for over 30 plus years. Every year, constantly drummed into us: safety, 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 protect, protect, protect. Wouldn't you think, after how many years he's been into politics, that he would learn how to protect things?
Well, I can tell you that we all know this. I knew this from my time in the CIA, 2005 to 2010. Politicians are the worst when it comes to this stuff. Politicians think that they operate under a different set of rules when it comes to classified. They leak like sieves. They do not care. So, Mike, I got to tell you, Biden is particularly reckless, but a lot of politicians in general, they just figure they'll get out of it. You had something else?
One quick second one. Everybody who has been in that garage by the classified Corvette, wouldn't they need to be debriefed, whether they saw it or not?
No. I don't think so. And also, they'd have no way of being able to really even check and see. I don't think they had surveillance cameras in the garage the whole time. But if they were in the vicinity of it, there's no reason to believe that they actually were reading it. As Clay has pointed out aptly, thank you for calling in, Mike. Clay, this is where you put the dusty old trophies. This is where you put the plaque from the Rotary Club or something. You know what I mean?
The garage is the place the closest on the way to the dump. The argument that anything is secure other than your car, which obviously you keep in the garage is where you put things that you don't value enough to keep inside the climate-controlled home. Everybody gets that.
Art in Washington, Georgia. A lot of Georgia calls. What's up, Art?
Hey, good afternoon, gentlemen. I think back to, 2016 when, we're standing there staring at the TV, listening to there was no intent, no lawyer would take up this case, and I'm talking about the Hillary Clinton server in the basement and all of that. And I think how that turned out, and I think this is going to be this document thing with Biden. It's going to be another nothing burger. They're just going to. They'll play it out for a little bit, and then they'll brush it to the side.
Well, what I would say, thanks for the call, Art. What I would say,
Art, I agree with Art. So go ahead,
yes.
Clay.
Well, but also they're going to say the same thing about Trump, I think. Right? I think they're going to come out and Merrick Garland will wag his finger and say, everybody needs to take better care of documents. And both of these guys could be charged with crimes, but no reasonable prosecutor would bring charges in these cases. And it's basically like offsetting fouls.
So I don't think they're going to do it at the same time. I think they're going to end the Biden probe, whatever it is. And the probe is basically over already. I think they're going to end the Biden probe pretty quickly before the election gets in the full season. I think because, as you aptly pointed out, there's also the January 6th component that's tied into that special counsel. I think they let that thing run all the way up to Election Day. That's what I think they'll do.